All right, welcome to the Week 1 Forum. This week we are looking at Chapter 1 of the text, which is basically, what do you call it? Sort of political research 101. What are we doing? This chapter, you want to figure out what the difference is between scientific and non-scientific forms of knowledge. You want to be able to differentiate between quantitative and qualitative scientific research. You want to understand the basic elements of the scientific process and analyze different challenges to the development of scientific knowledge. All these things kind of reflect something important about scientific uh, thinking, which is that it's rigorous, that it follows logic and facts, but that the reality is the human behavior is not, it's not strictly uh, amenable to quantitative analysis. So you have to have a lot of different approaches to understand things. Uh, what's the difference between scientific and non-scientific forms of knowledge? Well, obviously, we have lots and lots of intuitions that guide our thinking. I mean, I think if I wear my special 10-year-old rat-eared, holy University of Georgia shirt, that the University of Georgia will win on Saturday. That's not scientific, but it works for me. Scientific thinking is where you're actually looking at events and you're trying to make sense of them, and you're basically saying, if this set of facts come together, a certain result is more likely to occur than not, right? We need to understand the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. Some kinds of behavior are very amenable to quantitative research. Some are not. If you're looking, for example, at voting behavior, that is highly amenable. You can look at voting behavior both within the context of overall election, campaign voting, but also within the framework of legislative behavior. How members of Congress cast their votes. These are things that you can study in a relatively rigorous and scientific way. My master's thesis topic, terrorism, on the other hand, is notoriously difficult to measure, rigorously in a quantitative manner. Now you can, and in fact, instances of violence can be measured, and you can track it. There are these things called that they're stochastic models that basically have been borrowed from disease tracking, and of course, the metaphor of terrorism as a disease is well worn. You can track those kinds of violence, but the reality is, terrorism is a kind of behavior that is resistant to kind of brute quantitative analysis, for the very simple reason that each instance of terrorism is designed to cause people to respond emotionally. And the reality is that some terrorist events simply have an outsized impact on people's behavior, right? So those kinds of things really kind of make it harder to understand, um, you know, what terrorism is and how we should think about it. There is also the differences between empiricism and normative research, right? Empirical research responds to kind of the realist, here are the facts, here's what we know about on the ground. Normative research basically suggests that there is that there is an ought involved. Here are things that ought to occur. I think when you look at what's happening in Afghanistan right now, a hard-headed appraisal would tell you that the government forces were not going to hold, that they were going to evaporate the minute they felt like the United States was not going to be there with their support to save them. We taught them how to fight the way the United States fights. We needed to teach them how to fight, how Afghanis needed to fight, and that is about teaching will, and we weren't able to do that. So there are both empirical and normative implications to this. One would be, well, a predictable result was facts on the ground. There was corruption throughout Afghani society that the Taliban exploited, and they were able to just roll them up. Normatively, we can say, well, we shouldn't have allowed that to happen. Well, that's a normative kind of argument, right? We could have done something differently, but we didn't. So that's part of the, sort of a contemporary example of what the difference is between those two things. There's also kind of the positivist versus interpretivist approach. I am very much more on the interpretivist approach to knowledge. I think that we are enveloped in language. I don't think we can extricate ourselves from the boundaries of language. As a consequence, I am less sanguine of the idea that we can achieve the kinds of scientific insights that occur, for example, in the natural world. Positivists believe otherwise. They believe that all observable behavior can be quantified, and that we can achieve scientific, understandings of human behavior. And that's all well and good. There's a lot to cover in this chapter. Some of it is fairly abstruse. Look that word up if you don't know what it is. But I want you to give it a good faith read, and let's talk about it in the forum. What is it that you think is most important to understand this initial chapter? What are you having difficulty understanding? If you can tell me what you're having difficulty understanding, I can help you. I'm not going to try and get you to a graduate level understanding of methodology in this class. I want to be humble in my expectations. So let's work together. I'm with you on this. I know it's very difficult sledding, but we need to understand these issues so that we can get you to a better place, and where you can analyze politics and political ideas in a much more rigorous manner. So let's have a great week. Make sure you make all your posts, and let's get things done. Let's have a great week.